All right, here we are again. Once again, thanks for joining us here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. Super psyched, always for our guest. We're going to have some special guests on this one, so pretty pumped. But let's start out. Help us welcome our guest today, Mr. Justin Davis from Livingstone College. Justin, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Man, it's a beautiful day in track and field. We're recording this pretty much right after the Prefontaine meet, so there's a lot of buzz right now. Everybody's shaking their head. Yeah, there's a lot of buzz going on in the track and field world. So, we're in the greatest sport in the world. Every day is kind of a great day.
It is. It is. It definitely is. Super excited. Love the Prefontaine Classic. Of course, the Olympics it's a good break because, trying to wake up at, 6:00, 6:30 a.m. and, trying to catch it in the afternoon. So Prefontaine was like, normal hours.
Most people don't like Twitter because of spoilers. That's all I use Twitter for during the Olympics. I'm like, look, man, I just can't make it till midnight and I can't wake up early. Just give me the spoilers and I'll watch the videos later, man.
Yeah.
And I was blessed and honored to actually be in Eugene for the Prefontaine meet. So I got to see it in person, man. It was, I can't imagine what it showed up on TV because it was unbelievable in person. So,
so I'm sure that was your first time there, correct?
No, that actually was my second Prefontaine. And I was
I'm
actually
talking about the new
cathedral. Yeah, the cathedral, right? No, actually, I bet you that was my third time. So I went early in like February to do like a site visit for the NCAA championships, and then I was there for the NCAA championships, and then pre. So yeah, I was blessed. I got to do a full tour of all the inside and everything. It's cathedral's a good name. It's opulent. It's amazing. Everybody should have a facility like theirs. That's my take on it. Everybody, maybe not the same, but building up, and we'll learn more about building up with your program here today, which is exciting as well. So let's get into it, man. Justin, let's I'm a big comic book guy. Are you a Marvel, DC? You like those movies?
So believe it or not, I love Marvel and DC. I'm not the comic book version. I am a big movie person. Actually, but I asked my wife one day. I was like, hey, during quarantine, hey, I like Marvel. Let's do this. Let's just watch all of the Marvel movies from start to finish, including TV shows in order. I googled the chronological order. And I was like, we're gonna watch them every in order. Of course they come out of order. So I was like, let's watch them all in order. And she was like, why do we have to do that? And about halfway through, she was like, I'm getting tired of it. But it worked out. We actually had a really, really good time during that quarantine.
I love that because we did that exact same thing over what I call Christmas break. I don't coach anymore, so there's no Christmas break, but over the 2 to 3 weeks when the kids were out, and we did the same thing, watched them in order. We didn't do the TV shows though. You're hardcore, but we did the 20 movies or 23 movies or whatnot. Well, speaking of comic books, my favorite in those movies is the origin story. How Captain Marvel got her powers, how Captain America, how Steve become Captain America. So let's look at your origin story, Justin. Talk to us about, when did track start for your life? How did it become part of who you are today?
Well, actually, I started out like, a lot of people, was kind of a football guy. I started in fourth grade, actually. I played football in fourth grade, fourth to sixth grade. I actually was supposed to play in sixth grade and broke my thumb playing backyard football. So that was like the 1 year I didn't get to play then, but still had a good time in sixth grade. But track didn't actually start until eighth grade. Believe it or not, in seventh grade, I was like up, and then didn't happen. So I was like, I didn't go. So why didn't you go? And I don't know, just didn't happen. So eighth grade, did the sign up again, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna try it out. Went there, and kept going from there. So eighth grade all the way up to ninth grade. Now, I was not a star, never did any AAU or USATF, didn't even know what an AAU was or anything like that. So I didn't grow up in that scene. It was mostly all football, just football, and then hey, do track. Wasn't very good in basketball. So it's like, those are my only two sports.
So as you were working through high school and quote unquote not a star, what event or events were you working on, and when did it become your sport? Because like we all, most of us are going to go on and do, I shouldn't say most of us on this podcast are going to go on and do it in college. Spoiler alert, we know you did. When did it kind of click like, oh, I actually could go to college in this sport?
Senior year, I was like, cool, this works. So like I said, I consider myself pretty good in football. I was like, I played wide receiver, kick return, and punt return. In track, I did long jump and triple jump. Like pretty much that's exactly where I started. Did that, 8th grade all the way up. The reason I got into long jump or to jumping was I was kind of the always jumping kid when I was growing up. I was always the one that was always jumping in and out of trees, over, flipping, doing a lot of flips. Used to get the little treadmills, the little small ones, the little small round ones. Me and my cousin used to do flips off of the trampoline, like doing flips over fences or off of fences and just jumping out of trees. So I was always a jumpy, headstrong kid. Even went to a summer camp and I was like the crazy kid. I went to a camp kind of down the street at school down the street, I'm not going to mention, but school down the street, and they had this big hole. So it was like a little contest. People would say, hey, run. And I was the crazy one who would just jump and run and jump over the brick into a hole that was about 8 feet down. It was just straight down. It was just like, go jump in a hole. And then they were like, oh, that was awesome. Do it again. So I was like, all right, did about 2 or 3 times, didn't get hurt. So that's how the jumps came.
You were doing parkour before it became cool.
Okay, before it was on TV, yes. So, but football was big. I was, glad to say I was all conference, all county. And, then senior year, I got a little bit better. My junior year went to state for kind of the second time. My sophomore year, I went to state as a 4x1 relay alternate. Wasn't all that great. I actually started out in long jump. It's like, I like to tell people this time, I started out like jumping like 16 feet in the long jump at like 9th grade.
Wow.
So it wasn't like this immediate amazing star or anything like that. I was jumping like 32 feet in a triple jump. Right. It's just like, man, didn't really know what was going on. I mean, in middle school, you're okay with those numbers. You're kind of okay. You kind of win a couple meets here and there, but I had to work. I had to really, really work. And by the time I got to my senior year, I, jumped 45 feet, which is okay, which is decent, jumped 22 feet in a state meet my senior year. Always thought I was going to go to college for football. Really, that was always my brother went to, well, I guess the other school, I can't, knock it, because he went to Catawba. My brother went to Catawba to play football. So that's the other school down the street. We love them. That's our in-state rivalry or in county rivalry. But he went to Catawba to play football. No one else in my family really ran track. We weren't really a big sports family that was like you really know. My dad coached softball. My mom played softball, just in the backyard. My brother always played football. Other brother played basketball. My sister was a majorette who actually went to Carolina, and she was actually a majorette at Carolina. So that was really, really big when I was born.
I love that, you were a 16/32 as a freshman, and then 22 to 45 as a senior, because that is the majority of people. I mean, the superstars that come out their freshman year are jumping 23, 24 feet and end up at 24, 25. Those are the rarefied airs, right? And they certainly still need coaching and get good coaching. But to go from 16 to 22, that takes coaching and self-discipline. What coaches had impact on you through high school, specifically in the jumps?
Well, actually, my high school coach was Ralph Ellis. It was really good. He's been there for ages and ages, and actually is still there as the head coach. But where I really, really knew that I was getting better, where I got kind of the best jump training per se, would be the legendary Robert Steele. And of course, you've heard about Robert Steele. And, I saw that I actually watched the podcast you did with Ernest Moss. And of course, he's a North Rowan graduate. I went to West Rowan. So I was in the county, but we were in another school. But I actually did AAU my senior year, first time ever. And we had a team called Rowan Express, and Robert Steele was the coach.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of got that. And then always thought I was going to go for football, did some visits, never really panned out, no scholarship offers, anything like that. So my mom said, you got to go to college. It was like, February, March, you're going to college, because everyone in my family's gone to college. So I could not be the last person in my family not to go to college, of course, right? So went to, a few other schools, went to Western Carolina, and I was like, never heard of Western Carolina or anything like that. And mom said, well, one of your cousins, went to West, so let's just go up there and see. Okay, that's fine. Went up there and I just saw the campus, and this, you go in the mountains and the woods, and just this opens up, and it's like, oh wow, it's a big place here. So went there, talked to Danny Williamson, of course.
Yeah, legend.
After talking to another legend. Talked to the football coaches first. I went down there to the football office. Hey, I want to play football. Okay, we'll check you out. Then they sent me over to Danny's office, because I was like, hey, I do track, and he was like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll check you out. And cool, senior year, get to the state meet. It got third place in the long jump and the triple jump, which, still not amazing, but okay. And then Danny called me up after that and said, hey, we want to offer you a scholarship. It's like, well, I don't have any other scholarship offers. That's where I'm going.
I love that story for you young guys and gals that are listening, and you're like, how could he have not heard of another university in his state? Things were different back then. The internet wasn't the same. Communication wasn't the same. It was very easy not to know every school around. Now today, it's like, if you were telling me this today as a senior, like, yeah, I never heard of that school, I'm like, oh, well, you just must not get on the internet then, because I mean, it takes a couple of keystrokes on Google now, and you'll find every track program and football program in a 100-mile radius with ease, and then throughout the whole country even. So that's interesting. As you were getting ready to go to Western Carolina, what was your thought process for like a major and for a career? What were you kind of thinking about becoming?
So I was kind of like, computers were starting to get a little bigger then. I got my first laptop like my senior year, had a MacBook or something, whatever it was back then, whatever it was called, just some kind of Apple computer. And I was like, oh, just, playing with it, always messing with computers like my senior year. And I was like, I can do that. I'll try that. I'll, go into computer information systems. And then when I got there as a freshman, I was always kind of ones that kind of like to play around and act around and things like that. So I went into my first, kind of did some acting for the acting classes. When I got there, because I just needed a filler class. Got into my first play when I got there, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Did 2 years of computer information systems, and things weren't going, I'm not the greatest student, so things weren't necessarily going the best. I loved the computers. I was doing well in the computer classes, but some of the business classes, I was like, these are, getting C's or, not going so well. It's like, do I really, really, really honestly want to find myself sitting behind a computer all day, every day, writing code, looking at code? And this is kind of still early as well, and just wasn't my passion. So I started doing more and more theater, more plays. And then my junior year, I was like, yeah, I'm switching my major. Switched it to theater. So it was actually ended up being I graduated as a communications and theater arts major.
You are easily the first person on the podcast who has been a theater major, my friend. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that. Where was coaching at all in your thought process? That doesn't sound like it was maybe at this point.
No, never thought about coaching. I guess kind of the reason why I got into kind of the coaching. So I always worked summer camps. So starting from my freshman year in college, I worked a couple summer camps back home. I always liked kids, I always loved kids. I was playing around with them, running around, jumping around. Sophomore year, same thing. Then my junior year, we had a summer camp on campus. My track coach said, hey, there's a camp going on. It's called Upward Bound. You guys can get a job, work during the summer. Cool. Get money. I can stay on campus, hang out, do whatever. Worked that my junior and senior year. Still no coaching. So it's always with kids and things like that. I graduated. As soon as I graduated, theater is, a little tough. So, it's like, I got to find a job. It's like, do I want to go into theater and struggle? Actually, that was my passion at first. Really, honestly and truly, it was my passion. I said, hey, I want to go to theater. I want to go. I told my mother, I was like, hey, I'm moving to New York. She said, you're doing what? I was like, I'm going to move to New York and do acting. She said, no, I don't think so. It's like, why? Like, why? She said, okay, I don't know if you're ready. And one again, I don't know if I want you to be away from me that far. You already went to college for 4 years. I don't want you to be away that far. So she actually, my mother actually worked at Livingstone during that time, as soon as I graduated. So she said, hey, let you talk to a theater professor here. He looked at my resume and he's like, you don't have enough on your resume. You're going to go to New York, you're going to get chewed up, you're going to get spit out, and you're going to be right back home. That kind of turned me off, and I was like, okay, well, what should I do? He said, get some gigs here locally, put some stuff on your resume, and then we could do that. So I said, okay, I did that, started doing my resume, but I needed a job. It's like they don't have a job when you graduate. So I said, my mother said, how about you do this? Go substitute teach, because my mother was also a teacher before she started working at Livingstone. So a long teacher. So that's kind of where I get some of that, always being in the school type thing. Was long teacher. My dad worked in management also. He worked for a company called Pilatex. He was a manager for that. So I kind of get some of that leadership as well. We also you can make money, you can stay here, do your acting, things like that. So did that. And since my mother was working at Livingstone, I literally just went up to fall semester. Track coach that was here, Adrian Ferguson. I said, hey, I just graduated college. I'm here in Salisbury. I was a jumper. Do you have any jumpers? Yeah, I got some jumpers. Do you have a jumps coach? No, I don't. He was literally the only coach here at Livingstone. I said, well, can I help? Sure, come on. So literally just came here, just went to substitute teach in the morning. I went to the YMCA. I worked in the YMCA literally right after that. So I'll go to teach from 8 to 3. Go to the YMCA from like 3. Actually, I came here to Livingstone. I'm sorry. I came to Livingstone for practice from 3 to 5, and then I would go to the YMCA from 5 to 8. Wow. So I was literally working just all day. But I was a volunteer for here, so wasn't getting any money, but just grinding it. Fortunate enough, my first year as a jumper, to have a really good jumper here as a volunteer, a kid named Terry Wood. So I was fortunate enough to have one of that good guru time of North Rowan jumpers. I know you were talking to Ernest about the North Rowan jumpers of the North Rowan jumpers. Oh, yeah. So I had Terry Wood and Andre Tillman and Mark Sturgis were that 3. And Mark ended up going to App State. Terry ended up coming to Livingstone, and Andre went to St. Augustine. And I was like, oh man, I get a great jumper my first year. He's a 49-foot jumper. He ended up going to nationals. We worked and kept going. He ended up going to nationals in indoor. Unfortunately, things worked out. He didn't come back at the second year, but I volunteered here for 2 years while also working in the school system.
So I love your see a need, fill a need attitude there, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, hey man, do you have a jumps coach? Okay, you need one? Like I can help, I can volunteer. So as you're volunteering through those 2 years, was anything that clicked like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not a theater guy. I'm a coach at all during that time, or was it still kind of just?
Still not really. Really, I was like, my whole thing was I really want to make money. I was like, how can I make money? How can I make a lot of money? that's where a lot of the computer came in. I was like, hey, computer information systems was big then. I can make some money doing that. That didn't really work out. I was like, oh, I can be an actor. I can go on TV. They make a lot of money. But I went back to my professors in college and they said, well, really, honestly, and truly, about 5% of the actors in the world are above the poverty level.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's very, very low.
Interestingly, that might also be the stat for professional track athletes.
Very true.
Sadly, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know 5. I mean, I knew it would be a small number. Not everybody is a Tom Cruise, a Rock, whoever. Wow, interesting. So you were like, okay, wait a minute. Unless I can get into the top 5.
Yeah, I need something. So the way it ended up happening, as far as coaching, like I said, I did 2 years as a volunteer. And then I kind of pulled away because, I was like, I'm volunteering. And I was in the school system. Like I said, I was in the school system. They asked me while I was there, hey, we need a track coach at the middle school. I was like, well, does it pay?
See a need, fill a need. Yeah. What's the paycheck, right?
Like, yeah, I'm just joking. I didn't really even ask to pay. I was like, sure, why not? Whatever. And they were like, oh, you get $800. Oh.
We all know you became a track coach, so we all know you ain't in it for the money, man. We as soon as you said that, everybody was like, "Oh, okay, well, he picked the wrong profession. You should have gambled and tried theater, man, because you got a better shot there." Unfortunately,
very true. Yeah, it was like $800. It was like an $800 stipend for the year, and they said do track, but then they're like the next year I went back. They said, hey, can you coach football as well? Well, I played football pretty much all my life also, so I ended up at North Warren Middle School and coached football and track that year. And took a break from the Livingstone track and field.
So coaching college and being a high school and college athlete, and now coaching 4-year college for a long time now. What was it like coaching middle school? I'm afraid I've never had a middle school coach on the podcast.
Believe it or not, it's kind of the same as an AAU coach. Well, not really, because you have them in the summer, you have a specific amount of hours. But for me, it was fun and it was challenging at the same time, because you have kids who are just learning, like, straight out of the kind of never really done it. Didn't have really, I did have one superstar stud who was like an AAU kid as well. That was, that was coming up, and, you'd use that one person, everybody says, hey, let's get this one superstar that you're just gonna, have them score all the points. So I had her in the, you could only do 3 events in middle school. So we did all that, but it was fun because I was able to, teach and teach and teach. But the thing about it is, me coming from a program like Western Carolina with Danny Williamson type program, which we're a 400-meter based program. Even for, jumpers, unfortunately having to run the 4x4 sometime in my life, wasn't fun at all. But neither, so I was like, trying to coach them a little harder, but then I also had to go back to my, hey, I'm working as it's almost kind of like a camp counselor. I've done that camp counseling. So I kind of knew how to work with younger kids and get through to them as well. So that actually was really, really fun. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's tough because you have to be very situational, right? How you train a middle schooler has to be different than you train a high schooler, different how you train a college and then a postcollegiate.
You only get 1 hour.
Oh yeah, not even training age, but even your time with them, which is probably appropriate for middle schoolers.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So what happens after middle school?
2 years. So after I did that for 2 years, or about a year and a half, my mother was still, like I said, working here at Livingstone. She told me, I went home. She said, the track coach just left.
Livingstone.
At Livingstone.
Oh.
Yeah. So the track coach had just left. He actually left in January. He left in January in the middle of the season, unfortunately for them. And the story, moving forward, is that year, their year for spring semester, they ended up having to have one of the football coaches. and they said, hey, we don't have a track coach. They made the football coach do the, fill in the void for that season. So I applied that, during that summer. Didn't really, have experience or anything like that. No experience, never been there, hadn't even, did a little bit of the volunteering, but I wasn't well known because I really just came to practice and left. So they, didn't really know anybody. But so we actually had an athletic director by name of Coach Lamont Massey, and he trusted in me and believed in me to come and fill that need for that program. He was actually the football coach and the athletic director at that moment.
So you got the head coaching job. Okay, let's break this down a little bit here, Justin, because we've had plenty of guests that multiple years of experience on multiple different levels, even onto the quote unquote Power 5 side, who, when they became a head coach after 10, 15, 20 years of coaching, their statement is it's almost 100%. They will say, yeah, I wasn't ready, right? Because, there's so much you got to do as a head coach. You're coming at this from 2 years of volunteering coaching, 2 years of middle school coaching, and you are now handed the keys and it's like, good luck. I mean, how much of a, I don't want to call it a punch to the gut, but how much of a wake up call was it? Like, oh man, okay, I got to learn, or did it come naturally?
Nah, it was a major punch in the gut. I thought I was ready. You're never really, really ready. But like I said, I came from a program from a Livingstone. He gave me my full support. But as you can tell, I didn't really have track mentors because it was never really in my major plans. So it was like, it's like acting and, football all my life. So I didn't really have a lot of coaches to, never really talked to a lot of coaches, didn't have a lot of experience. And even then when I had the track coach that I was under, I didn't really talk to him as much. I was like, hey, let me come do the jumpers. I did he let me do my thing. I actually coached the jumps, and I actually ended up doing the strength and conditioning for the program as well, because I, kind of had a background in that as well. But I didn't really say, hey, do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? What do I need to do? He didn't make me do any paperwork or anything like that. It was just like, hey, boom, you get handed the keys, and was like, okay, and the funny thing about it was being a head coach at a small school was like, you got to jump in and say, hey, your first season is cross country. It's like, oh, okay. Never knew anything about cross country. It's like I went to one cross country meet when I was in college. I knew we had really, really good people. I used to always remember Coach Williamson always went out there and ran with the athletes, during the morning at 6 a.m. And it was like, hey, you got cross country. I was like, okay, well, who do I have? You don't really have any runners. It's like, okay. So what do I need to do? So I ended up, he helped my athletic director say, like, hey, well, this is what we do. We got some money. We'll kind of put a filler out there during registration for the school and say, hey, you want to run cross country? You want to run track? Come on, we got some money. Did you ever run? So just literally just pick people from campus. Just, hey, if you ever ran, you want to start in cross country, we can give you some money.
So Justin, you are obviously a smart individual. So when you get this, I'm going to call it, we had Carrie Lane on the podcast, who was a distance runner by trade and has become one of the top throws coaches in this country. And so when we were interviewing her, she coined this term, these oh crap coaching moments, where it's like, oh crap, I got hammer throwers, I got to learn how to do the hammer. Oh crap, I got the #1 javelin thrower, I got to learn how to coach the javelin. So here's your oh crap moment. Okay, I'm the head coach. What did you do to better yourself? Did you reach out to anybody, former coaches, coaches in your conference, anybody that you reached out to, or maybe even the AD that kind of, to ask those questions that you needed those answers to?
Well, there's a lot of the on-the-job training. I did talk to Danny, Coach Williamson, and say, hey, I got cross country. What do I need to do? And actually talked to Ernest Moss as well when he was. So when I came to Livingstone, he had literally just got the job at Virginia State. So if you go back to that connection that you had before. He got that opportunity to go there. I got this opportunity to go here. We're both both Salisbury natives, but he was like, okay, this is a little bigger school, bigger program. And believe it or not, he might not tell you, but he actually turned the job down here to go to Virginia State's bigger school. Why not? Bigger school, bigger program. So that actually kind of gave me a little bit of blessing. That actually kind of opened up that door for me. And I think that, if he would, because he had already had experience. And I think if he wouldn't have closed that door, or left the door open per se, then I might not even have that opportunity. Right. So I kind of thank him as well for, hey, turning down the job. Thanks, Ernest Moss. But, so we were in the conference together, and of course, both of us are, we don't really know what's going on, but he actually came in, he actually won. And when he was talking about that conference championship, he actually won cross country championship. So it's like, hey, what are you doing with yours? And he was like, I do a lot of interval training. You got sprinters, you got jumpers and things like that. Do a lot of interval training. Said, just give them, 200 meters, short rest, or, give them minutes, like, hey, run a minute, all for a certain second, do minutes, 2-minute things like that. So I was like, okay, well, that works. And it actually worked. But I, had a couple kids that really knew nothing about cross country at all, but it was just getting through it. Like, hey, let's, I know this is what we got to do, especially when you got guys have to jump from, going to 5 miles, so we went out, just ran a lot, and, trying not to kill them. But, it was rough. It was rough because you get pulling kids off of campus.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to call it a quote unquote normal situation. So a coach has been at a place for 5 years. You got an established team. There's ups and downs. I mean, there's days on the job that no matter how passionate you are and how into track and field and coaching into your program you are, there's tough days. You just kind of lick your wounds and go home and hope the next day's better. I can only imagine in this situation, a lot more maybe down days or maybe even further down days. What was your mindset towards like, okay, things may be tough today, but I can, like, could you see 3, 4, 5, 10 years out? Or was there ever a time you're like, man, maybe I need to go back to theater and go to New York and try it there and get my butt kicked there, because this ain't happening here?
Nah, I was invested. Me being a Salisbury native, me having the connection of Livingstone, both of my parents and my brother both all graduated from here. So it's like, I'm invested into this program and seeing it grow. Because even when I was at Western Carolina, I always kind of knew of Livingstone. When we would go to track meets together, we used to go to like ETSU, and I would see Livingstone name. I'm like, just talking to them because I know my mother worked there, my family had all gone there. I was like, hey, how y'all doing? Talk to them and just kind of see. And, and they actually kind of had some pretty good jumpers as well then. But and they have Livingstone has a really, really long history of Coach Cliff Huff. Before Adrian Ferguson came in, Coach Cliff Huff was the big time coach here. And he had amazing amount of success, had, All-Americans, even had a national champion, Jordan Vaden, back in the day, back in 2004 was a 200 meter NCAA Division II national champion. So I knew kind of the history. 1999, we had a 4x1 women's team that actually was All-American. So I kind of knew some of the history. So I reached out to Cliff Huff as well. Hey, how is the how do I do this with your program? Because it's, kind of your program. And, even with Ferguson, I was like, hey, how did you do this? How did you do that? Because literally I came here, had 3 track girls and 3 guys. That's it. So it's like, okay, so it was a lot of on the job training every day, but we worked, but I didn't really see the path. I was like, hey, I know I need to change. I need to get better, need to do this. We didn't have a lot of scholarship money. So it's like, get some people on campus and just learn. I studied, I went and got my level 1. And it's like, hey, just, with the level 1 is really good because it teaches you everything, the whole spectrum. You got throwers, jumpers, sprints, distance, and everything like that. So
who did you have do you remember who you had for your level 1 instructors?
I know I had Lauren Seagrave, and I had it was a while ago. It was really good distance coach. He was at NC State. Can't remember. I got to go back and look at it, but I do remember Lawrence Seagrave, because it was one of those things. It's like, you're going to always remember Lawrence Seagrave.
Yep.
And of course, you remember him, laying on the table. Hey, this is how you do a sagittal frontal type thing, and like he's explaining, like what is this? Who is this random guy?
Yeah, Lauren was my level 1 instructor as well, and I remember all of that exactly.
Yeah, So I actually met Austin Davis in my class as well.
Yeah.
So who's in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I met him in my class. So and the funny thing about Austin Davis, which a lot of people don't know, and the reason we talk is like, hey, I'm the Livingstone track coach, and he's like, yeah, my sister went to Livingstone and ran track and graduated, and I was like. And she was really, really good. She was a 39-foot triple jumper as well. Of course, they're triple jump family. So
yeah, right.
So we talked, and we've been friends ever since.
Awesome.
As well.
I love that you had hope, if you will, because like you talked about Coach Huff, and it's like, wait a minute, okay, this program has been good. Like if it's been done in the past, there's more likeliness that it can happen again in the present and future. So I love that there was reaching out to Coach Huff and like, hey, so how did you do it? What did you make work? Because every school and every program has its uniquenesses. So how did you interact with those uniquenesses, Coach Huff, so that maybe I can help grow those? Now, you've been there now for how many years?
So as the head, I'm starting my 14th year.
So in those 14 years, we're early in the first year and 2 years. When did things change? When did they not become having to on the job training, if you will? When did it become like, okay, this is my program. This is how we recruit and we compete and we have some success. When did that start clicking?
So I came in 2008, so didn't really have a lot. I actually kind of had a couple good athletes there that were already really invested. Like I said, I had 3 girls, 3 guys, but they had been through the program. They kind of were pretty good. So then I was like, man, I got to go through my first recruiting class. Never done recruiting.
Right.
I had to learn that as well. So on top of learning how to coach, you got to learn how to recruit. And I'm not a big gift of gab type person. Yes, I can talk, but I'm not a seller. I'm not a gift of gab. And, so it was some rough moments at first. Got a couple people to just invest in me and, hey, we got a young program, a starting program to kind of believe. And, didn't really have anything really big. I had my first big class in 2011. Was like my best class. And fortunate enough, in that 2011 class, I had some really, really great, amazing athletes. Anna Kay Edwards, she was an 800 runner from Jamaica. I had a kid that actually transferred to me, BJ, who was a 6'10" high jumper. He actually transferred in from St. Paul when they unfortunately had to shut down. I also got a transfer in from East Carolina, big time thrower. He was a 170-foot discus thrower. Also got another transfer in. It came and played football. A kid named Brian Acoth. That's kind of one of my, other success stories as well. He's a kid. He was a baseball player. He also went to West Rowan, so that was my connection. He came here as the quarterback. West Rowan kid. I knew him growing up, and I was like, "You play baseball. You're really good at quarterback. How would you like to try javelin?" He was like, what is that?
Right, yeah, what is that? Right.
Like, what is that? Like, hey, so I brought it out to him, took it outside, and I was like, this is what it is. It's got this spear, this long, 800-gram spear. Just throw it, as far as you can. Just think about baseball, think about football, things like that. Learned. He's a great, great student. Great, amazing student. I knew it was a speed and power event. I actually kind of coined and learned that very, very well. Great student. I just kind of taught him how to, do some of the things, but he just was a natural. I mean, literally a natural. His freshman year, he actually got second in the conference in the javelin. First time ever picking it up. And
wow.
Moving the story forward, 4 years later, He is a four-time all-conference, three-time conference champion in the javelin. Actually qualified for nationals senior year, and was unfortunately the one name that did not make it into the nationals when they made the cutoff. So it was pretty devastating at that moment, but he actually he went up to Carolina and actually learned from Jeff Korsky. Did some training with him as well. It's like, but and now today he's actually in our Livingstone Hall of Fame as a javelin thrower. Mind you. So
wow.
But also fortunate. That's a big story, right?
Well, it's an awesome story about a kid who has an even better college experience because of someone that reached out and was like, hey man, why don't we try it? Nothing can happen, sure, but maybe something happens. Yep. And he becomes a Hall of Famer because of it. That's amazing.
So he's actually my first Hall of Famer here as a coach. But he's amazing. He actually came as a quarterback, got tired of getting beat up around, got bigger and changed to linebacker. He moved from quarterback to linebacker because he was like, he got tired of getting beat up. In the senior year, he was like, you know what? I'm doing really well in javelin, so I'm going to just focus on track specifically.
That's amazing. I love that growth of the program. And part of having a great program for the programs that are allowed is the coaching staff, not just a single coach, right? And so we are actually super lucky. In fact, I've got to brag a little bit on Justin here, dear listener. So when I reached out to Justin about being on the podcast, because we'd had some communication back and forth, he was quick to jump on. He's like, yeah, I'd love to be on the podcast. That'd be great. He goes, however, I have one request. Now, normally when I get requests, it's, I don't know, they want a flashy tide. I don't know what they want. So I was like, what does this guy want? What is his one request? And here was his one request. And I tell you, it's a great example of servant leadership. He said, I would really like to honor my staff. I've got two great assistant coaches. I want them. It wasn't even a question, but you didn't even ask me, Justin. He just said, I want them on the podcast. Like, it was a request. And so, that's a pretty easy one. We'll accommodate that. So I'm super happy to have two assistant coaches here from Livingstone College. Justin, who should we start with and learn a little bit about their story on your staff?
So the first one that I actually was able to get that actually has been with me a little bit longer, we'll start with Coach James Fakunle, who came into me as just another wonderful story. So he'll give you an idea of how he got here as well. Coach Fakunle.
James, welcome to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you know he's been here the whole time. Let's pull the curtain back here. No secrets. James has been with us here the whole time we've been here. So James, take yourself off mute and maybe give us a quick story. How did you get to Livingstone? It's always going to be good when it starts off with woof. Let me tell you.
Yeah. No, honestly, I of course in academia now. Thank God to Livingstone. But before then, I was a professional. I worked with Sherwin-Williams. Got tired of the grind of working at in the business world from that perspective as mid-level manager. So I decided to use my master's and teach business. So I ended up applying for the job as a instructor of entrepreneurship. Wow. Took the job, and I guess it's not, I guess the second day I was there, and it was really on my mind as soon as I found out that they had a track team. I was like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna fulfill my passion of being a coach. So I went stumping around looking for Coach Davis. I didn't know him yet. He didn't know me. I had, I'm trying to remember, it was the sports management professor at the time. I want to say his name was Professor Orr. He told me about Coach Davis, and I went looking for him. I told him, I was like, how you doing, sir? I shook his hand with the firm, straight eyes, And I was like, hey, I don't know if you need help with a jumps coach, but I would really love to help you. I used to jump, and I was decent. I had a slight stint with NCAA, but I've got a lot of history with coaching. I would really love to help you. And he was so grateful for me to ask, and I would say he was so gracious to allow me to coach. And I'm in my 6th year now. And it's been a great time ever since.
Now, as a fellow jumper for Justin, was there any ego machismo of like, oh yeah, well, what was your PR? Because here was my PR. Did you guys go like have a jump off or anything? Or
well, we had some jump offs. I'll be honest with you. Before I came to Livingstone, I had a stint at in New Orleans working with Sharon Williams, and I went from slim guy to fat guy. Okay, so I got. So I wasn't at my top peak. I'm losing weight now, but that too much boudin down in the bayou. You know what I mean?
Hey, good food down there, man. Good food.
Hey, man, great food. I literally just came from there. But no, we've not had any real competitions where we were both in a good position. Coach Davis is still a pretty spectacular athlete. I think the best thing I had in reliving my glory days is I dunked once in one of the practices, and I'm only 5'8", so that's still kind of impressive.
So that makes me, I had to tell my one dunk story.
Okay, come on.
So I threw it up, and I was just trying to get it to bounce off the backboard and, and jam, right? But it actually hit the backboard and came off the rim. So like I caught it way back here and connected.
Now, how tall are you, sir?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the basket. So this 8-foot basket had never been
8-foot basket
rocked like that. It was back in the days when I was in high school. So it was before like cell phone and video. Like it's one of those things like, man, I wish someone had been filming that because it was Jordan all the way. I don't care. It was 8 foot, man. It was still a dunk. I mean, we don't.
Yeah. That's a great story, though.
So you've been there 6 years, and you're a professor in business and entrepreneurial skills. How do you? That's interesting. How do you utilize the skill set of a professor of teaching, specifically in like this entrepreneurial world? How does that translate to when you coach kids or recruit kids? Is there a difference in the way you maybe talk to them or help them see aspirations for what they can become?
Well, I'm gonna flip the script on you, Mike. I'm gonna say that coaching actually helps me in the classroom.
Interesting.
To be quite honest with you.
Tell me more.
Well, because as you know, as a coach, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can't teach every kid the same. So I would say that my coaching experience, which is vast, and we'll talk about it here shortly, but it helps me in the classroom tremendously just to understand where students are coming from, understand their different types of learning. I've literally given different types of tests based off of how I know students learn, just to make sure that they know the curriculum. And it's me going above and beyond what I have to do, but I am there to teach. So there you go.
That's interesting. We, not being a professor in the past ever, but coaching, we talk about individuality and coaching, different strengths, different weaknesses. So how we coach, I never thought about that. I think a professorship is more of blanket, like, okay, here's my test, you figure it out to learn. But you're actually talking about like, hey, you learn this way, so I'm going to give you this test to help you succeed. You this group over here, you learn this way, so I'm going to give you a little bit different to help you succeed and really learn the subject.
Well, yeah, typically they would be exactly as you explained it, but like I said, I'm not a traditional college professor. Like, it wasn't even something I really wanted to do per se. I'm a businessman, and a coach. So I go for effectiveness more so than tradition. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
We could all learn from that. Going for effectiveness. That's, I mean, if we're not being effective, what in the world are we doing? It's just
fluff. It depends on what organization you work with. You might be just another day in the office, but not with me. I'm not. That's not how I conduct business. So
you said you had an extensive background in coaching. Give us the kind of 30,000 foot level. What kind of background do you have there?
Oh, well, I'll give it quick. Okay. So I ran track and field in Alabama, which is where I'm originally from.
I'm from Alabama.
What part?
I went to high school in Eufaula. And I went to college at the greatest university in the world, Troy University.
Fall back on the Troy. When did you go to Troy?
So 96 through 2000.
Oh, so you knew Jesse Morrow.
He was right after. Yeah, I think he was like 2000 to 2002. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He did go in 2000 now, think about it. But that was, he was, I guess, up until that point, y'all's greatest hurdler. So I ran with him. He was out of Muscle Shoals. I'm out of Florence, which is just across the road. Yeah,
that's awesome. Very cool. Man. So so now I got to tell another story because it involves Jesse. So we're selling our house up here in Champaign, Urbana. We were in Urbana, Illinois, right?
Okay.
And so I had painted my basement of that house red with black for Troy. And so the guys that were buying the house, they couldn't figure it out because no one knows Troy up here, right? So they thought it was Ohio State. And at the closing, so my son's name is Troy. That's how important the school is, right? So in the closing, we said something about Troy, our kid, and the guy goes, Troy, and he goes, what's Troy? He's like, oh, it was my wife. She goes, oh, my husband graduated from Troy University, so we named our son after Troy. It was Jesse Morrow's cousin. He goes, man, my cousin ran track there. Did you know a guy named Jesse Morrow?
Get out of here.
I was like, whoa, small world, man.
How pervasive. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, I like that.
So tell me, Florence, and then where did you go on from that?
Okay, so I was in Florence. I ran with a local track club called the North Alabama Trackers for summer track. Okay. And it's really weird. I'll be quite honest with you. I ran track just because, it was something I always loved. Everybody liked basketball. I thought, of course, Michael Jordan was great, but football is okay. But I've always loved track and field, Olympic sports and different things like that. But track and field has just always been great to me to watch and keep up with. And so I ended up running when I got to high school, and I was okay for my area, but there was always this small school. It was called Town Creek. They're not even in existence anymore. But they would come to the meets, and I was at the 5A level, 5A.
Mm-hmm. That's
so, before 7A came with Hoover and all those people, it was 6A, 5A, right? Mm-hmm. So we were 5A, and I don't know, they would come as a 1A school and would continually kick the crap out of everybody. So I was just like, man, what's going on with this? I became friends with one of the jumpers, and he invited me to go and participate in the summer track. This was my junior year. So I went my summer junior year, and I'll be quite honest with you. I was for Florence, Alabama, I was good, but for like regionally and stuff like that, I was complete trash, So I was probably long jumping 20, maybe triple jumping, maybe 43 as a junior. Not that great. A year after working out with them, I ended up jumping. They brought me from 43 to 46, which was good enough to get a scholarship to Alabama State, which I didn't have the grades for.
Oh.
So I stayed back and tried to get my grades up and ended up coaching with my track club for about a year and a half. No, 2 years. So that's when my coaching stint started. I learned how to take a trashy athlete and put and give them the underworks and make them pretty good,
So you had to end up getting a degree though. So I love that you almost went to Alabama State. I wish you would have gone because Richie Bean, one of the greatest human beings in this whole world, is the head coach there. So where did you end up getting a degree from? Because I love this. Like I didn't have the grades there, but you obviously got a degree. So like you kept at it.
I went to the University of North Alabama.
Yeah.
Get my grades up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Then transferred to Alabama State. At the time, Coach Bean was the assistant. Coach Crump was the head coach.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Coach Crump was the head coach. I went there for a while. I decided that it wasn't for me. Before then, while I was at University of North Alabama, I did an internship at Disney World. And I'll be honest with you, me and Coach Davis were in the same boat, man. I'm a fan of money, big fan of it. You know what I mean? So after, my track coaches, which I have to name, which is Coach Good, Coach Aaron Good. I think he just got elected to the Alabama Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
And if you're from Alabama, surely you know the Goods. They big with the University of Alabama, excuse me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we hosted at Troy. We hosted the 1, 2, and 3 state championships. So Town Creek and stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I knew those. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. So I think Pierre Good still holds the record for like fastest 100 ever in Alabama. Like this guy was, legendary. So that family they're the ones that kind of taught me up. And I think they did like a special on ESPN when back in the early 90s when Alabama ended up beating Miami and would play Florida. And they had like a little special on that school. Well, I ended up going there and learning all that. Wow. And so taking that and just implementing it with the student or the kids that I had. And I just saw a bunch of success. The program, the North Alabama Trackers, of course, being athletic was great, but the main focus was to get students into school without having to pay money, getting full rides, as they say. We get everybody full rides. My other coach, which is like my father, Coach Hampton, as country as he wants to be, out of what is it? Geez, I can't even remember the name. Barton, Alabama, off Highway 72, going towards Memphis. But this guy, he always says, we're going to get him full rides. We'll give you a full ride. That's his selling tip to get students to come and run track with us for the summer. And so coached with him, helped a lot of people get scholarships, actually. Ended up going to Alabama State for a little bit, didn't like it, came back to the University of North Alabama and coached my entire time during my undergrad career. Graduated, and then, worked a little bit professionally. Ended up going to my grad program at the University of South Florida. Okay. Graduated from there. And then in 2013, ended up, one of my old track and field buddies, Lamont Warren, he went to, I think, Tennessee State and ran track. He came back to the area and was the head coach for Florence High School. And they took the two schools, Coffee and Bradshaw, went to Bradshaw, and they merged them, made it a big super school. So we competed in the 6A level at that point before they went to 7A. So we went against Hoover and all those other people. And so he needed some help. So the 2013 year, we went in and really turned that program around. He ended up leaving, going to Texas. I took the head coaching position for that year. And then I ended up leaving, going to Louisiana. And then I think you know the path from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that path. That's so cool. And you're from one of the greatest states in the world, Alabama, man. That's you would say that. I was born in Florida, so I mean Florida. Well, that's not
great. Florida. We'll go with Florida. Alabama's a good state, man. It really is. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Florida ain't that great right now either, man. There's some bad bragging on those two states, but Alabama I do love when it comes to track. It was interesting back then in your time and before like Jesse Morrow and stuff, there was about 5 schools that every year won the state title. Scottsboro was one of them, up in that area. And it was because there was about 5 coaches that, invested in coaching education. And since then, coaching education has gotten much, much bigger in the state of Alabama. And so now there's, much better athletes coming out because there's much better coaches that are investing into them. So I just love, being from my home state. So were you running before Crossplex was down there?
Yes.
So you ran in the barn. You run in
the barn.
Yeah.
Yes,
See, people don't
right in Decatur area.
Decatur. Yeah. People don't know. Don't know. Yeah.
The barn. I can't believe you brought that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to do a podcast one day with all Alabama kids that ran in Alabama and become coaches. We just got to reminisce about the barn and the horse barn and the cold and the splinters and running off the track because there was no railing or anything. It was terrible, man.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah. So James, I know we have a little bit restraint with you, so I wanted to give you an opportunity. Tell us what now you're 6+ years here at Livingstone, a lot of great experience, very cool and unique aspect as far as a professor mind head when you're coaching. What's got you excited about Livingstone coming up here?
Well, let me just go ahead and plug the gentleman I work with. I think that the fact that we have such a good coaching core with Coach Davis, you've already heard about how spectacular he is. I'm going to brag a little bit on Coach Bryson as well. Coach Bryson is also a professor, and he'll give you a little bit more about that. But the education that we have, the dedication that we have to the program and to our student athletes. And it's more than just track and field, like I said, because we've got that educational background. It's all encompassing. And of course, ethics and standards and all that go together. But we've got that drive to win. What I'm looking forward to this year, now that we're going to be back in competition, I believe, I'm looking forward to just laying a solid foundation for the great recruiting class that we've had last year and this year, and pushing forward. We've got on the lady side, we have some great talent, and men as well. We want to give them what they need so we can really shoot out. I think we've got a good chance of winning the CIAA. I really believe it, and so I'm just really excited. We've got great attitudes. Going to put forth the work and hopefully yield the results that we want. So,
Well, there's a perceived battle of being a student and an athlete, right? Education and athleticism. Boy, I tell you what, probably hard for those young men and women that join your program not to take academics seriously when you've got a couple of professors on staff, for crying out loud. That's got to be a boon for the kids. Like, oh man, it's not just my coach. Like, I got someone in academia as well. What's the NCAA model? We all go pro in something. 99% of our kids are going to go on to become lawyers, doctors, business owners, etc. What great mentorship to have with you guys there is taking academia as serious, that you do it as a profession. I love that. That's really cool.
Absolutely. And I got to be honest, I would like to say, it's because I'm so professorial. So Bryson might want to throw that in as well. But I think Coach Davis kind of had this gravy train running before we got there. I mean, Livingstone's number one I should say this. We always win the award within the school for the highest GPAs. So we've got some great students there. And Coach Davis does a great job of recruiting some really smart students. Now, my coach back in Alabama would say that you got to be smart to run track and field. People are going to make mistakes, but it's the person that can think and make the least amount of mistakes. So very good, very smart athletes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, James, thanks, man. I know you've got some time constraints, man. I really appreciate you. I'm going to try. I didn't say it, but I wanted to make sure I took a stab on the recording. It's James Fakunle.
Exactly.
Great, nailed it. Yeah.
Nigerian, go with it. Green, white, green, baby.
I love the easy names like Davis. That's, I can hit those out of the park, man. Fakunle, that challenges me, and I've knocked it out of the park. That's right. Thank you, James, man. I really appreciate you. And let's go to another professor. I didn't know this, so help us welcome another assistant coach here at Livingstone, Mr. Darius Bryson. Darius, how are you, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
Or is it, if I'd have known this, I'd have called him Professor Fakunle. Is it Professor Bryson? What do we, don't roll your eyes. You're a professor, man.
I don't like when my students call me Mr. or Professor. Like, I tell them to call me, I don't know. It just sounds weird to me. Whenever they're like, Mr. Bryson, I'm like, no, just call me Coach Bryson.
Coach. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. There was, some really big, I'm all in on Twitter, right? So like all my information comes from Twitter. And there was someone recently, I think in the academia world actually, who posted about why is the profession of coach, why is that title used as much as it does? Meaning if we're at a track meet, right? What do you, hey coach, there's never like, hey Darius, hey Justin, it's pretty rare. And he was talking between professions that like doctors don't do that. Like they don't go to a doctor. I guess there's a doctor convention. Is there a USTF CCCA for doctors? I'm sure there is. It's probably like at Paris, France. Those guys make too much money, but they don't go around saying doctor, doctor, doctor. They say Darius and Justin and James. So you prefer even in the teaching setting, just call me Coach Bryson.
Yeah, like I don't know, Mr. just sounds so formal, and Professor, I just prefer to be called Coach Bryson.
Well, tell us about your, I was going to call you Professor Bryson. Tell us about what you teach and how you teach, and then back us up and tell us how you got to Livingstone.
I teach fitness and wellness, which whenever I call recruits, it's funny because they're like, oh, fitness and wellness. It's just a fancy name for health and PE in college, just to be honest. I teach, I'd say probably about 95% of my students are freshmen. So that's kind of, sometimes I'll get some upperclassmen, maybe if they transferred in or they didn't get their credit. And also in my class, like you have to get CPR certified, which is a part of like at Livingstone College. It's one of the things that you have to have a certain number of community service hours and you're supposed to get like CPR certified. So that's kind of like two of the main things.
Yeah.
So like all the students get CPR certified through me.
Help us understand a little bit more what you're teaching. Are you teaching the stereotypical underwater basket weaving and stuff like that, or are you teaching a little bit more like academia?
It's kind of a mixture. I mean, it's more so like activities. Like we do stuff like tennis, we do ultimate frisbee. Like I've done flag football. Like we do a lot of sports. Like badminton is my favorite. Like we do that, but then we also like once a week we do like classroom work. So like there is a textbook, like there is tests. Students are always like, oh my goodness, we have homework in it. Like I don't give a lot of homework, but they're like, oh my goodness, there's a textbook. So like, yeah, like I do lecture once a week. Like we take tests, we take exams, like they have 2 papers they have to write. Because a lot of students that I get, they're like in high school, they didn't really have to do anything. And like my class isn't super hard, like you can ask most of my students, but like they're just shocked that they actually have to do some work in my class. It's like type a paper, even though it's not that long, take 4 exams. So it's kind of split 50-50 as far as like activities and then like lecture and book.
So how did you get to Livingstone, and was this always the plan to be a teacher and a coach on the college level, or how did that work out?
How I got to Livingstone would be my wife. I was at Vance High School in Charlotte, which is just recently changed its name to Chambers High School.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, because I know Vance. Why did it change its name?
Well, it was Vance is Zebulon Vance, so it's kind of like a little racial thing, a racial tone to it.
Sure.
And kind of like where it's located. So it's one of those things where like, no, we need to, like they've been talking about changing the name for years, but they finally got it approved this year. And so like this is the first year that they've actually changed the name to Chambers High School.
Yeah.
So I was there. I had just come from Concord High School where like I coached high school track for 7 years. So I went to Vance. I was there for a year, but I kind of got the passion. I was like, I think I want to coach track in college. Because I had done it under Coach Williamson. Like me and Coach Davis were teammates at Western Carolina.
Oh, is that right?
And I'm actually from there. Like I grew up like less than 10 minutes from Western.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I was there with Coach Williamson. So after I graduated, I became a grad assistant. I helped out with the sprinters and the relays for like 2 years. Then I went to high school, coached for 7 years, won a couple of state championships, which was fun. And I actually started my teaching career at Salisbury High School, which is right across the street from Livingstone.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm back at Livingstone is like, it's kind of like I've come full circle.
Right.
And so I was like, man, I think I want to get back into college coaching. And so my wife, she's always looking up jobs for me if I'm trying to like look for a job. Like it's just something she just naturally does. She's like, hey, Livingstone has a fitness and wellness teacher position. So I'm like, well, I'm not applying. Why would they hire me? I'm just I've been in high school. Like they're not gonna hire me. No, she insisted that I applied. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, Coach Davis is there. He's my friend, teammate. I was like this is my opening. Like I prayed for like just to get my foot in the door. Like because a lot of times, a lot of my mentors are like, yeah, the hardest part is like just get your foot in the door. And I was like, man, if I got it, I know Coach Davis will let me volunteer coach. So that's kind of going in the back of my mind, but I'm still like, they're not gonna hire me. So I put in the application, like 2 months go by. Nothing. Then I'm at the beach, which my wife loves to go to. So I'm at the beach and I get a phone call from Dr. Duncan. Hey, this is Dr. Duncan, Livingstone College. We'd like to offer you the job. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like it felt so long from when I applied that I kind of forgot about it. I was like, oh, I didn't get it.
Right. Yeah.
So she calls me, it's like early August. And I applied in like before June or like mid-June. So she like offers me the job. So I'm at a Chick-fil-A in Myrtle Beach. So I go, I tell my wife. She's like, did you accept it? Well, I was like, no, I wanted to talk about it first. She's like, no, you need to call her back and tell her you want the job. So I call her back, I accept the job. So again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, wow, like I actually prayed, like, how am I going to get my foot in the door to coaching college? Because always, like, it's not necessarily that easy, depending upon what your schedule is. But I was like, man, I'm a teacher. So like, I'm already on campus. My friend is the head coach. I was like, I can't believe this is actually happening. And so like the first year, I was really more kind of like, I was like, Coach Davis had a really good sprint coach there named Coach Dunlap. So I kind of just watching him, I'd help where I could. I had a couple of athletes on the side, some that were kind of like in multiple sports, like football player trying to get fast, or I had somebody like from the band, for example. So I kind of worked with them, but I kind of more just observed my first year. Then my second year, Coach Dunlap left. Then Coach Davis was like, hey, short sprinters, relays, they're yours. I was like, oh my goodness. I was just talking to my wife. I was like, I feel like I'm kind of losing my, kind of like when you're away for a while and you're like not practicing what you,
Sure.
I was like, yeah, I'm observing, but I'm not really getting to coach like I'm used to being a head coach on high school and doing this, and this. And then the next year rolls around, Coach Dunlap leaves. So now Coach Davis gives me a lot more responsibility. I'm like, this is what I asked for. And so, I mean, this will be the beginning of my 5th year. So that's kind of how I got to Livingstone in the position that I'm in now.
You know, it's so important to have friends and family and spouses that sometimes believe in you before you believe in yourself. I love that story of your wife, like, oh yeah, no, you should totally apply for this. And you're like, no, they're not going to hire me. Yeah, no, shut up, Darius, just apply. Like, I know it better than you. Just do it, baby. So I love that, you know, that support system that you had have with her, and that it pushed you into what you are today. That's so amazing. And that you were teammates with Coach Davis. That's how the world works, right? It's who you know gets you there, but what you know keeps you there. People forget about that last part sometimes, that you still got to know what you're doing to stay around. So what's the breakout? If Coach Fakunle was a jumper and maybe he's coaching jumps, Coach Davis was a jumper, what are you coaching? And Bryson, you said you're coaching kind of short sprinters and hurdlers maybe, or?
No, I coach, well, in track, I ran the 1 and the 2 and the 4x1 and the 4x4. And at Livingstone, I coached the 100, 200 runners, and I coached the 4x1.
Okay. And Coach Fakunle is coaching jumps?
Yes.
Does that mean you got everything else, Justin?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. So we did have a throwers coach this last year, but he's kind of transitioned out. So, you know, as right now is we're looking for a throwers coach as well. But until then, I'm fortunate enough now that we live in a day and age to where technology is amazing. I have kind of a connection with a virtual coach that I know. So we actually do, for our throwers, we actually do virtual coaching through one of my former athletes as well. That is really, really good. So we do that until we actually can get a hands-on. But for the most part, I do their strength and conditioning. But yeah, I coach 400 and up, as well as the hurlers. Coach Fakunle does jumpers. Coach Bryson has the short sprints, and right now I'm doing the throws as well. And I'm in cross country season.
It's the story over and over again. Track coaches, we are asked to do more with less than on average every other sport out there. You know, no football program has a coach that's doing the offensive line plus the tight ends plus the defensive backs. I mean, it's crazy. We have maybe not always compared to football, but we have more kids than sometimes more than football, but we have more kids than anybody else. We're 6 sports generally than one. It's just, it's amazing. It's not right. We need to continue supporting our programs and getting more coaches and getting them a continual better coaching education as well. Darius, what do you do for your coaching education? You said you've been here about 5 years now, I think you said, for Livingstone. What do you do?
I've gotten a couple, like I got my level 1 certification. I got my level 2. I don't remember how long ago. I got my level 2 certification. I've done 2 other ones. One is called Altus.
Oh, no, Altus very well. Love those guys.
Like Dan Path. I've got that certification for short sprints. And then I just last year recently did one from Ken Harden, who's the sprint coach at Tennessee. I don't know which. I think he's a short sprint coach. I did one of his certifications that he has.
Yeah, Ken's amazing.
I'm always trying to like every year, I'm always trying to do something. Because I know it's not just, oh, just because you have all these certifications, like there's so much more to it. Like, because if you don't know how to apply all that stuff, it doesn't matter. So I don't really brag about them, but I just try to pick commonalities between all of them to like put in my program.
Yeah, I think, I think the important part of coaching education is that it's continuous coaching education. Just because you have a level 1 or a level 2 or 3 level 2s, well, that's fine, but how are you applying it? And you kind of alluded to that when you were talking about you were kind of out of practice, like you had been observing, but until you're quote unquote in the muck and you're, changing people's prescription because of how they're being affected by the workouts, and you get a new kid, no man, they're not a speed person, they're more of a power person. So how do you change up the training and things like that? You got to be, it's they say you never forget how to ride a bike, but I haven't rode a bike in like 20 years. I bet you it would take some getting back used to. You got to be on that bike and you got to be coaching and to apply your craft and continually adjust to it. I think you're spot on with that. Is there a coach, you mentioned Ken, who's awesome. Love that guy. Great coach of Walter Dix and many other sprinters out there, who he himself, was a pretty kick butt 400 hurdler, by the way. You have to have him.
I found that out.
Yeah. He was like,
I stumbled upon it actually. I was like,
yeah,
he's really good at the 400 hurdle.
No, he was really, really good. Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other coaches? Is there like do you have like a best friend, mentor, someone you're like, you call at night and be like, man, help me out. Let's talk about this one sprinter. I'm just flabbergasted. Anybody that you have out there kind of as what was that the show, Who Wants to Be your Lifeline? Is there a lifeline coach you call him like, man, let's talk this out?
Yeah, like I actually have, I don't know, I kind of have them broken up just naturally in my mind. I have like what I call my main mentors that I've like known for a while. Like I've talked to them, they know me. Then I kind of have some mentors that have helped me amazingly through like emails and stuff. So like my main 3 mentors is definitely Coach Williamson at Western, because whenever I left Western to be the head coach at Salisbury, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I had just been a grad assistant.
Right.
Like, hey, you're in charge of this high school. You're the head coach, yada, yada. Like we were really successful, but I look back on it, I don't know how. Like if I knew it's what I know now, it would have been really, really, really good.
It's sometimes like
it worked out.
It's sometimes like handing a 14, 15-year-old the keys of the car and be like, all right, good luck, man. And you're like, that's scary for all parties involved.
It's just different whenever you're kind of like Coach Davis was saying, it's kind of like trial by fire. Like until you're in that position, like you think you're ready. Like, hey, you're the head coach. Oh my goodness. But I mean, it worked out really, really good.
What does that mean?
and I think I got a false sense of, because we won 2 state championships, but I had one of the fastest kids in the state. And like, he'll tell you I helped him get faster, but it's kind of like, I was like, oh, I kind of know what I'm doing. I mean, we're winning state championships, which is really hard. So I think I got a false sense of, oh, okay, this is it. But like I said, every year you realize what you don't know. And I'm like, oh man, why did I do that with them? Then I would say, getting back to my mentors, my other 2 main ones would be Coach Vault. He's the sprint coach at Virginia Tech. He was actually my sprint coach when I was a freshman at Western. And then my other main mentor would definitely be Coach Cheek at ECU. Like Coach Cheek, it's never just about track though. Like it's a lot of times it's just life. Like Coach Cheek, just his personality is like amazing. So a lot of times it's not just training with any of the 3 of them, but those would definitely be my main 3. And then some other ones that have helped me off the top of my head, like really probably more so via email, would be like Coach Kaba. Like, I don't know, like early in my coaching career, I was like kind of nervous to reach out to coaches. I mean, I don't know why, but like I would reach out. I'd be like, man, I know they're busy, because these are like big time coaches. Like he coached Gabby Thomas, and he's busy. Coach Taylor at Oregon, he's not going to respond. Like how quickly both of them respond to emails to me is amazing. Like Coach Taylor like I'll send him an email within like 24 hours. He always responds, and it's always with more detail than I even asked for. In the same way with Kaba, like I was like, man, I should have done this earlier in my coaching career. Like, it's amazing how you just assume, oh, they're not going to reach out, they're busy. But like Kaba and Coach Taylor, they've given me so much information through email that it's crazy just for me asking just little simple questions. And then my other two, probably this past year, will be Coach Parnot at Minnesota State and Coach Clark at Ashland. Like, they've helped me so much, like the last year and a half, ever since COVID kind of hit. And we did a lot of Zoom clinics. And they're two other guys that, like, they always respond to my emails, like, in a lot of detail, like give me advice on, like, well, hey, this is how I set it up, or this is what I do. So I would definitely say those are my main 7 if I had to pick. I mean, there's some other people that have helped me a lot, but those 7 have kind of overwhelmingly helped me as far as like questions and communication.
I ask those questions like that kind of for 2 reasons. One is, the goal of the podcast is to uplift and honor coaches and their journeys, right? So those people you mentioned, like a Coach Taylor and Kaba and Chris and Ernie Clark and Tim Vaught, I mean, just amazing. Udon Cheek, amazing people. It's to uplift, like, see that those people affected your life in a positive way. Like, that's awesome, and they should be applauded for that. The other reason is because I'm like, well, I need to make sure I got the right people on this podcast. Like, so when you mentioned like Kaba and Ernie Clark, Chris Parnot, it's like, oh, good, I've had them all on the podcast. Okay, I'm on the right direction. I've got people that are affecting not only athletes' lives positively, but other coaches' lives positively. So, okay, I hit about 50% of them. I obviously have some work to do to get the other ones.
So I'm gonna toot in just a quick second.
Yeah.
When we talk about Coach Williamson at Western Carolina, we haven't realized it until, obviously in the last few years, but he has pumped out a lot of coaches. When we look at myself, Coach Bryson, like we said, Tim Vaught, who's at Virginia Tech, who's amazing as well, been in a lot of different things. Then you also have Johnny Bomar down at Wofford, who is also a Western alum. And then of course you got Ernest Moss, who starts really good. And then we also have Marla Lindsay, who is at Guilford College. She is amazing as well. She actually did the female mentorship program out in California as well. Now, Guilford is a D3 school, and the only reason she's really there is because she has a whole family and lives in Greensboro. But at any moment, really, she honestly could be so many other places, and we're going to work to get her there to that level. But we also have, we have Evan Ilizada, who is actually the director of operations at Baylor.
Yeah, I know Evan well. Yeah, I didn't know he was a Western Carolina guy.
Yeah, so it's a lot of us. It's a lot of us in the coaching realm.
That's awesome, man.
High school people as well.
That's a shout out to Danny Williamson. He was one of the first people. A good friend of mine, James Sprecher, actually introduced me to Danny a long time ago when I was coaching. It says something about, first of all, a guy or gal that it's at a university for a long time. Like, that's quote unquote rare and rarer every year. But when you have a lot of people that go on to become coaches, I mean, that's really, said or unsaid, spoken or not spoken, says a lot about the leadership of, like, man, that guy, for whatever reason, inspired me to do what he does, like to go on and kind of grow his family tree, if you will. So I love that, man. That's so cool.
I forgot Adam Pewitt out at UNC Asheville, and of course Jesse Norman, who is at Western Carolina now as well. So
yeah, didn't
Kale at
Kale.
State.
I was gonna say Cale McDaniel. That's I was thinking, because he's been on the podcast as well. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Darius, you said something earlier that I wanted to touch on a little bit, if it's okay with you. You had said that, I'm gonna paraphrase here maybe a little bit, that you'd won a couple of state championships, had a really fast kid there, and I can't remember the exact words you used, but maybe you said false confidence or something like that? You kind of were like, oh, I know it now. Like I'm good. And then you go on to another level and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I still have a lot to learn. Can you talk about just kind of that psychology that, because what I hear, and don't take this, I mean, it is kind of negative in this sense, but don't take this personal, I guess, is it was ego. Like ego was like, look, man, I won a couple of titles. Like I'm, maybe from Alabama, this is how me and James would say it, like, oh, I'm the man. And then you realize like, oh yeah, but I've still got so much to learn. Can you kind of walk through? I think there's something important there for listeners to hear.
Yeah, I think it was a false sense because it was like instant, like, oh, you're state champions. Like the first year, and I admit, like without Coach Williamson, I don't even know how I get through that year. Mm-hmm. Like he would literally send me workout. Like I would call him every Sunday, Coach, what are you doing this week? But when I look back on it, I'm happy that I was smart enough to know, now I don't know if my kids can do this, so let me modify it. Mm-hmm. So when I look back on it, I'm like, well, thank goodness I modified it. Mm-hmm. But like he would, every week I would call him, it was email. Like, so like I still have them all printed out. I have like 38 weeks worth of workouts. Mm-hmm. Just modify them for my group. But I mean, whenever your first year you win a state championship, I was like, man, then the next year we won another state championship. So we were back to back. And it was just like, wow. But then whenever I would go to like a clinic or something, you're learning from the best, and you realize all the things you're doing wrong. Like sometimes they say your athletes are good in spite of you. Like a lot of coaches don't like to admit that. Like, I mean, when you do bad training, you do bad training. And so I just think about some of the things I did that were just really dumb from a training standpoint, but the kids were still successful. So it kind of humbles you, like, oh, you thought you knew what you were doing. You just had some really, really good athletes. You did a good job leading them, but there was a lot that you could have improved upon. But I think it works like that naturally. And like even now, I don't think, oh my goodness, I know everything. Like I still learn something like every summer whenever I really go into it, like, oh man, I need to try this, or I shouldn't have done that during the competition phase. So, I mean, you're still always learning.
I think the key word you said there was humbling yourself, of like, no matter what success you have, that there's always more to learn. Like learning doesn't stop, right? You hear that saying, if you think you know it all, well, just get out of the game then, because the truth is you don't know it all. It reminds me of a good friend of mine, Ryan Banta, runs a podcast called Companion of the Compendium. And
yes, I bought that book.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? Yours truly is in that book. So just skip over that section. But the rest of them, 99% of that book is amazing. There's just 1% where I think I wrote on hurdles. So take it with a grain of salt. But he runs a podcast called Companion of the Compendium. Mm-hmm. And recently he had the great Vince Anderson on the podcast. And first of all, I would recommend every sprints and hurdles coach to go listen to that episode with Vince. He, in my opinion, nails sprints and hurdles coaching, and even jumps, like long jump and triple jump. But you got to go listen to him. Even if you've heard Vince 100 times, go listen to that specific episode. You'll be better off for it. But one of the things he said, now this is Vince Anderson. You know Vince Anderson, right? I won't even start naming the kids he's coached. He's coached so many All-Americans, national champions. The guy is amazing. But he said something that I'm not sure a lot of people would pick up, because he was giving out so much great information. But he talks about that when he's at clinics, when he's speaking at like state clinics or USTFCA, et cetera, that when someone else is speaking, like another clinician, he goes and sits in. Now, Vince
takes notes.
Yes, Vince Anderson knows more than 99.9% of the coaches out there. And that's zero hyperbole, by the way. And yet he's humble. That's why when you said that word, like I immediately was like, oh, Vince Anderson. He's so humble that he listens to others, because there may be just some little nugget to pick up, or how does someone else do it in their situation? Because every situation is a little different. He may be in that situation one day, so he wants to be prepared. And it just really made me think about that when you were saying that, Darius, that humbling yourself of education, mentors, reaching out to people to learn more and how their situations occur, so that you can bring it back and make your program the best it can be.
Like in high school, I had a girl that was ranked really high in the 500 indoor. And we did this the week of indoor championships. We did this really crazy workout on a Monday, which I thought was okay. So I go to a clinic the following summer, and it's like this guy was talking to me. He says, this is the type of workout that you would never do. And like, she did really bad. Like, it was so heartbreaking how bad she did.
Did you feel like did you feel like a spotlight was on you?
Man.
Like, oh man, they're all looking at me.
It's just crazy how you hear it. Like, he's like, this is the type of workout you would never do during the week of a major meet. And like, I had literally just done it and wondered, like, yo, why did she blow up? So like, I felt so bad, but it's so humbling. Like, God, like you like, I thought I knew what I was doing. Like, I completely didn't know what I was doing, but I learned from it. Like, oh, so never do that type of work.
That's the key, right? Like, that's the evolution. It's one thing to make a mistake. Like, hello, we're all human. We're going to err. We're going to make a mistake, right? The error is okay. In fact, it's extremely valuable if you learn from it. Now, if you had done that same workout for the next year, and then, you know, 3 years still doing it, it'd be like, well, Darius, I mean, like, what are we still doing here, man? You're getting the same results, right? Like, why are we not evolving here? But you clearly saw the athlete didn't do well. And then you kind of get that reinforcement of the clinician that was like, you would never do this. And you're like, oh, okay, done. Take that out. That's not the right time to do that workout. That makes that mistake so valuable. You got to find that athlete and I think you said it was a female, tell her, hey, thank you for letting me screw you up that week, because that really made me better for the rest of my career. So many athletes have you to thank, a former athlete of mine. Well, Darius, let's fast forward here. Let's start wrapping up, and tell us what has got you excited as a coach at Livingstone, just what the program's doing and evolving. What's got you excited, man?
I'm just excited because we have so many like young kids on our team. But a lot of people ask me, like, I was talking to Coach Cheek the other day. He was like, man, how you looking for the upcoming season? Yada, yada. And I was like, it's just weird because we haven't ran in 2 years. Like, some people have, like, they got a chance to, like, and like that stuff matters. Like, hey, have you been training? Have you had a chance to compete and then go into different phases, then come back because you're at this level? Like, our kids haven't ran in 2 years. And so, I mean, if we have a red shirt kid, he hasn't ran in like 3 years.
Right.
So I'm just excited to see like where are you? Because I mean, it's easy to say, oh yeah, we're there. Well, we haven't ran in 2 years. I have no idea. I'm excited because I know how talented they are. Like the class that, or the classes that we brought in, like we have a lot of talented people, but it's just like we've been off for 2 years. So the excitement added in is kind of like the mystery itself adds to the excitement, because I don't like you don't normally just take, like, you only have 4, you don't take 2 off. So I'm excited about that, just to see like, where are we? How good can we be? How good can we get? Because we're so young. It's just COVID has thrown us off so much. Well, thrown our conference off. Like I said, some people got to compete, but like 2 years off, I think the mystery just adds to the excitement, because I mean, we don't really know.
Do you have like the first track meet circled on your calendar with big red, like, it's showtime, baby, we actually get to compete this day right here?
Yes.
Awesome.
Coach Davis sent me the schedule, and I always look at I mean, you kind of have an idea in December when it is, but you still want to see it. So just excited to get started and see how fast we can run at the first meet.
That's awesome, man. We're excited for you. It's going to be, it is going to be awesome. That first meet coming back off of COVID last year was awesome. And now we know some people didn't get to compete this past year. So this year we have just as much to be expectant and excited, and can't wait for the full action. Everybody should be back on the track this year, man. We're pumped. That's so awesome. Justin, all right, you're going to bat cleanup here. Wrap us up, man. What's got you? You're the head coach. You're the head honcho, the grand poobah, the architect of it all, man. What's got you excited about Livingstone?
I'm just excited, just like I said, just to piggyback off of what my coaches are saying, just excited for the opportunity to just get back. Yeah, there's one thing when it comes to just training the athletes and going to practice every day, But just like we make mistakes and things like that over the years and trying to learn how to get better. But just for the mental sake of the athletes, and that's what I really really want to push for them, because at the end of the day, coming to practice every day, it was really rough for our students athletes last year, because going to practice every day and knowing that you're not going to have a track meet to look forward to go to. And this year, it's going to start, probably will start off a little rough until we actually get to that first meet, because it's like, well, just based off of this new variant, it's like, everybody's still thinking, all right, we're going to go back into a shutdown. Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to really be able to go? But here at Livingstone College, what we did was to try to help to society, we actually mandated the vaccine for all of our students. So that will help us to be able to get back into the swing of it. So, you're going to have a little rough time, but I like to say that, 100% of my student athletes are vaccinated. So, we didn't have any hiccups with that. We didn't lose anybody due to, not taking the vaccine. So that was really, really important for us. And I like to and bring up, Coach Bryson. Since Coach Bryson, has come in, he's really opened my eye as far as the in-state students, because we're a private school. So tuition costs the same for everybody. So I said, I was one that's like, I'm just go get everybody, just go to California, go to, other countries, other states. But since he's been a high school coach for so long in the state, he was like, hey, let's just get these local kids. Let's get a lot of local kids. And I was more a lot of times like, well, a lot of local kids don't really want to stay, or some they're going to, bigger schools and things like that. So he's really, really helped me in recently, the last couple of years, to just really get us some really, really good athletes just regionally.
Yeah,
as well.
And you got it tough. North Carolina is one of those unique states, much like Kansas, not a real, not a populous state like a Texas or California or Florida, but you might have like a bazillion track programs on the collegiate level in North Carolina. So you got a lot of competition. The good news is even though the population may not be like a Texas, there are some amazing athletes in North Carolina.
Amazing. So, it's always been, tough for us because, of course, you have, even though we don't have, you got the NC States and the Carolinas and, and Dukes and things like that as far as the majors, but then you got so many mid-majors like us, like a Western Carolinas, Appalachian States, and then even in the Division II, our conference is very tough. Our conference is very tough, and the CIAA conference is probably one of the toughest sprint jump conferences in the nation. I mean, when you talk about the history of St. Augustine,
you could stop there, and that's hard enough.
Yeah, it's like I put them at, I started them off the top. I could have, but I mean for them, but it's going to be very, very interesting with the absence of Coach Williams. It's going to be interesting. So we'll see how that plays out. But, with Fayetteville State with Coach Turner coming in, leaving from Winston-Salem State. So in our state, we have a lot of schools. Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville State, Johnson C. Smith are all in our state. So, it becomes a battle when it comes to recruiting on that sense. But, we might think it's a really, really good kid, and, some might end up just walking on to UNC Charlotte or Appalachian State, so it gets really, really tough for us. But we've been great to have. We brought in 24 student athletes last year during a COVID year, mind you, with them not even having a track season. They all of them, they didn't have their senior year last year. So, for us to bring in 24 student athletes last year was really, really good and really big for us. We have about 12 this year as well, that they kind of gotten started, but we're super loaded when it comes to freshmen and sophomores. Don't have a lot of seniors, maybe, a couple of seniors, a couple of juniors, but just excited about what they can do, what to see them, like Coach Bryson said, we don't really know what we're going to get, but man, if we put the work in, if they put the work in, and their mental and their mindset is there, then I think we can really make a big push to move bigger and higher up in the conference.
Well, there is excitement in youth. but youth needs leadership. So it's great that, you know, the 3 gentlemen that we had here today, you're the leaders of those young ones. Good luck. That's the best I can give you.
Yeah, but super excited. Also, one thing to plug in as well, you know, I know we've been talking about trying to get, you know, some equipment and things like that, man, just new track.
Yeah.
And, whew, you know, our track was actually put down in 2003. Coach Huff, Cliff Huff was the leader and got that put down. So this is actually our first resurface since 2003. So they're going to do a full gut from our track and our football field, and we're gonna, you know, to big up to our athletic director, Coach Massey Simpson, who, you know, like I said, he was the one who hired me, but he came back. He took some time off to do some football for a while and came back as athletic director. And, you know, me, I'm a track coach. I was like, you know, talk to John Bynum, hey, you know, let's get this nice, wonderful blue track and it's pretty and all that kind of stuff. My athletic director said, no, I want a blue field. And I was like, you know, okay, that, you know, like Boise? He's like, you know, our colors. He said, I want a blue field. I want a Columbia blue field, and I'm going to make it happen. And it's like, you know, but we can't have a blue field and a blue track because that would just be a complete washout. That'd just be weird, you know.
That would be weird.
We gotta, it's just awkward, you know. So we got a Columbia blue field coming, Columbia blue turf field. Shout out to Willie Lanier, part of that HBCU project that's coming out, the Honey Bear Project, who is actually helping us to get all those, helping us to get that turf field. He's going around. The Willie Lanier Project is going and giving all HBCUs turf if they want it.
Awesome.
That's a new project that's coming. So we got that. So, you know, they said, well, if we're getting this field, we can't just have a, you know, not have a track. So we're getting a brand new Bynum track, Bynum 300 system track coming in as well. So we're patiently awaiting that to start. And, you know, that's going to be a really, really big game changer for us.
Yeah. The success that you've had, I mean, this like puts even more excitement into it, right? When you bring recruits on and now you're showing, I've seen the rendering of it with the field and stuff. It's going to be, I mean, this is first class here, what you guys are building. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
So just imagine, you know, with us luckily having, you know, an Olympian now with Quinera Hayes. When she was here, she did her, you know, she actually did 5 years here, but, you know, just imagine her training on that track that we had and getting to the success they have. I mean, we're talking about multinational champion, multi-All-American, and a track that was put down in 2003. I mean, we got, you know, some holes in some places, and, you know, it's kind of weathered down and things like that. But we made some alterations and changes. You know, shout out to the assistant that was here, Coach Tim Dunlap, who was a sprint coach at that time. But, you know, just imagine just what we had then and the success that we've kind of been able to have, low scholarships and, you know, in a track that's in dire need of some service, to be able to get this new one in. I mean, it's really going to open up. And I mean, and also to have an Olympian, that's going to also help us to recruit a little better.
Yeah, I want to end it with that right there. Tell us a little bit more about Quinera, right? Is that how you pronounce her first name? Quinera Hayes. She went to school at Livingstone. There was a lot of pictures of her from the University of South Carolina, and shout out Curtis Fry and his staff, amazing people. But she's a Livingstone athlete.
Yeah. Livingstone, she was born and bred. Yeah, she went here. I recruited her out of Fayetteville. She went to Grays Creek High School in Hope Mills. That's when I go back to when I was talking about that 2011 class. She was part of that class that I brought in. So her first year competing was 2012. So just, you know, super duper talented. It's like one of those things. It's like, you know, you think you know how to coach, and then you get an athlete like that. I mean, she went 56.9 out of high school in 400, but I mean, it was in her already. We just had to work to pull it out. You know, she went from 56.9 in a matter of a year and a half. She went 51.54 to win her first national championship. And like, that just doesn't happen. You know, we know how hard it is just to get, you know, athletes, Olympians train 4 years just to drop a tenth of a second, you know, but to drop that you know, for her first national championship. I mean, you know, she ended up winning 51-54. Second year, she went 51-91. But I mean, still national championship. I mean, she just continuously uplifted the program during that time from 2012 to 2015. And then she, you know, of course, went on to almost her pro career. She didn't really get the, she took a year before she was able to sign with Nike. But, you know, kind of had to, it was rough at first because you're coming out of a program, a really, really small program like Livingstone College. Like, where is that? You know, like, who are you? You know, you're a Division II athlete. Like, it, you know, it was kind of rough because it's like you think of all the Power Fives and, you know, all these big schools. And I mean, this is a 3-time national champion at the end of the day, you know, and she kind of got looked over, unfortunately, at that first Olympics in 2016. She was actually kind of passed over for the relay, unfortunately. So that was kind of a story that, you know, that she has told, of course, that, you know, it's like, man, it's a little unfair because they just didn't really know who she was right out of college, kind of young, Division II. She's not, you know, Power 5 or anything like that. So, but she's just been amazing, you know, ever since that. And actually, I think when I looked at the start list today, she should be running in Lucerne today.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well,
So,
I love her story for two sides of it. One, for the athlete, that she didn't, like, she believed in herself. She didn't let the false narrative that, oh, I'm at Division II, so I'm not supposed to be 51 point, or I'm not supposed to be a professional. I'm not supposed to be an Olympian. Like, she didn't allow that false narrative to stop her growth. Love that for her as an athlete personally. And then I love it for the school. It's like, you know, with good coaching and belief in yourself, I don't want to say it doesn't matter where you go, but boy, there are a lot more options for you to go than just the quote unquote Power 5 or Division I. There are amazing, how many Olympic, I mean, I don't know the number, but I know it's true that in this past Olympic team, we had junior college kids that were on the team, NAIA, Division III, Division II, and of course, Division I. So I just love that story of like, man, she didn't have to go somewhere else. She went to Livingstone and was ultra successful. So, I mean, just shout out to Livingstone, the program, the coaches, the support. It's not just coaches, right? We talked about professors and academia and athletic trainers. It had to take a whole ecosystem to make her and the other athletes there successful. And it's just cool to see it, man. It's cool to see it actually come to fruition. I'm super excited about the new facility. That I think is going to be another, you know, with all these young athletes, this is just going to be another shot in the arm to continue to grow in a tough conference, a tough division. Division II ain't no joke. Go check out the results. If you think you could just skate into Division II and be successful, go see what it takes to win a national title and be an All-American. It ain't easy, folks. It is not easy. No division's easy, man. So don't kid yourself if you think it is easy. So guys, thank you. I know Coach Fakunle had to jump off, but man, Coach Bryson, thank you so much for being here today. Coach Davis, thank you for being here. The most important and valuable thing that you can give me is your time, and I'm just super appreciative that you would spend that time with us today.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Like I said, we followed your podcast for a little bit, and you know, it's like, and the funny thing about it is when I saw your podcast, you were the reason I reached out, and I was like, hey, he works for Gill Athletics. But I was like, oh, he has this amazing podcast. So I really, really appreciate you, you know, just trying to lift the smaller programs, because I mean, everybody can do, you know, big, but continue what you're doing, and we extremely appreciate it.
Thank you for that, man. I really do appreciate hearing that. And that's a wrap, folks. We're done. Let's do it all over again next week. We're going to have another amazing coaches. I don't even know what division. It may be high school for all I know, but we're going to have another amazing coach where we're going to uplift and honor their journey in this awesome profession. And I hope you join us. If you'd like other people, maybe they receive value, share it with them on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Maybe someone holds a sign for the podcast while they're doing the crate challenge. Now it's interesting. This will be 2 weeks later. Let's see if the crate challenge is still a thing. I hope it's not. Stop doing the crate challenge, people. That's my PSA for the day. I'm out of here. Check us out next week. Thank you again, guys. Appreciate you. Have a good one.